Okay, so welcome back. We're going to play a little bit more Suzerain Rizia. What's going on in the news today? The Consecration. Religion's roles in the affair of the state have been upheld through King Romus's partaking in the Consecration of the King. Hosted by the Archsanctuary of Pavlo, the secret ceremony was presided over by the Grand Wiseman and the Royal Councilman Sal Ignatius. It brings me joy to announce that His Majesty the King has reaffirmed his commitment to the Ruchestic faith. Don't actually know how to say it. That wise man Ignatius. Not only does our crowned head embody the spirit of the Rizian people, but of the Lord Almighty. May his long reign be the beacon of to the faithless, and shining the light to all those who proudly devote themselves to the one true God. We at the Herald believe that the harmonious collaboration between the sanctuary and the state can yield numerous benefits, ultimately contributing to the more compassionate, inclusive, and prosperous society. We eagerly await the what fruits of this partnership will come to bring. And the Crown has begun the restoration project to return to Pavlo, our sanctuary, to its former glory. One of the most revered religious landmarks in the kingdom, this site has served as a beacon of the faith and knowledge for generations. Under His Majesty's decree, skilled artisans and historians are beginning to restore the sanctuary's golden dome and sacred halls. The restoration will not only preserve this historic landmark, but also attract devout travelers from across the kingdom, reinforcing Pavlo's role as a center of religious and cultural significance. As the work progresses, the kingdom reaffirms its commitment to preserving its sacred heritage for future generations. Okay, again, we still have these royal decrees, and I've been told to not do them until like it's end of turn. Found a new university. You get more military equipment. Is there like does it say like where? I mean, we have energy budget. I mean, the thing is, we have +3, so we need to spend at least some of that eventually. Okay. As a gesture to the noble houses and to celebrate the cultural musical heritage, the proposal to host an extravagant classical concert featuring the renowned Rizian composer Antonio Garcia Albania has been made. You can't go into debt? Oh, thank goodness. This event could serve as a display of the monarchy's support for the arts and reinforce its prestigious image among the noble houses. Well, I think like an early holy okay. There's a lot of decrees. We'll look at this at some point. Okay, current security situation. That's the sanctuary. Rusty offers us a loan. And what's the report going on? Nobles of all Rizian's royal houses have descended on Port Drazin to attend the classical concert hosted by King Romus. Now famed composer Antonio Garcia Albania has also arrived, just in time for his moment to shine. Thousands of commoners have gathered near the airport to catch a glimpse of the celebrity, but failed as he was quickly ushered into a limousine and driven towards the concert hall. Okay, what's going on in the news? Governmental has formally requested an expansion of its role in the oversight of strategic maritime routes, including the Glamish Sea, the Gulf of Glomland, and the North Rikian Sea paths. This demand comes amidst the existing control exercised by the CSP Consortium, which holds veto powers alongside Vagslani Nikatania and AN observers who attempt to maintain neutrality in maritime traffic. Government's arguments for a stronger presence in the decision-making stems from its geographical significance and a nation's strategic interest in the region. This move could potentially shift the balance of power and control over these crucial maritime passages. Okay. So let's see. Do we want to... I mean, sure, let's just see what the loan is for now. Russello Rusty Montoro, the CEO of Rizian Royal Gold, extends an offer. He is willing to lend the monarchy funds at a competitive interest rate. This, by the way, this is a 50% interest rate. So I don't really know if that's good. I mean, that sounds 50% seems quite high. So I'm going to reject the offer for now. We don't need his money. And our authority maxes out at 15, so we definitely need to spend authority at some point for sure. My cat is screaming. You might be able to hear it, I don't know. Okay. On the way back from the Pavlo Arc Sanctuary, I met my council in the city of Fals Dator for a briefing on our security and military situation. The so-called Forge of Rizia was famous for its numerous foundries and factories, in which iron from the nearby hills was transformed into rifles and handguns. Largest of them all was the Royal Fals Foundry, responsible for supplying the Rizian police and military. The red brick complex towered at the end of the King's Avenue, fulgurated towards the main road. My council and I were given a tour of the facilities before settling around the table in the Foundry's Great Hall. Murals on the walls around us depicted the city's history as an industrial center. As Duchess of the province and my war and security counselor, Lucitia sat at the head of the table. She nodded at the rest of us. Your Majesty, Your Highness, my esteemed fellow counselors, I planned this meeting here so the king would have a shorter journey after his consecration ceremony. I'm sure the proceedings were very taxing, Your Majesty, whatever they were. Okay. It was taxing for sure, but it is my duty as king to bear that burden. Let's hope that something useful came out of all of that. Sal was sitting across from me, still wearing his robe. He smiled enigmatically. Religion is not a tool to be used, Mrs. Zaro. It is a guiding light that shines even on those who do not believe in it. Hugo nodded approvingly. I know better than to pry into the contents of the ceremony, Your Majesty, but I will say I hope that it was an enlightening experience. You may all proceed with your briefing, Duchess Azario. With great pleasure, Your Grace. There's not an I in Azario, it's just Azaro. She gestured at one of the murals on the wall. It depicted a beautiful but severe looking woman riding a horse. Down the King's Avenue, her rifle at the ready. My ancestress, Anna Azaro, ordered the construction of this foundry in 1812, immediately after the end of the War of Rizian Succession. House Azaro knows that peacetime is not a period of rest. It is a time to gather our strength and hone our weapons for when they are needed next. Because they most certainly will be needed. Okay. I mean, we gotta remain vigilant, for sure. But not to the point where military focus tracks on these Rizian people. Form new alliances. You know what? We have become soft. We have become soft and complacent during these conflict-free years. Not without reason, of course. I could hear the passion rising in her voice. Our failure to win the Reclamation War and the Rebellion of 1926 serves as a double blow to the Rizian armed forces. Even after my father purged the troops and general staff of all suspected traitors to the throne, His Majesty King Veneral was reluctant to restore our military to its former strength. As a result, Your Majesty, we are ludicrously underprepared for a country of our size. Okay. Well, I mean, I do want to go to war. You know, that is a high priority for my government, is to go to war with somebody at some point. Okay. You know, understanding the details will help us plan more effectively. Tell me more. We're facing shortages in critical areas like armored vehicles, advanced communication technology, and even basically infantry gear. Now, a word of our military priorities. Focusing on the Air Force offers us a chance to establish area superiority, but it requires precise investments in procurement and fleet expansion. We will also be training a paratrooper division under this initiative. The strength of our Rizian armed forces lies in the diversity of our resources and units. We have manpower ready for duty, as long as they're equipped with the necessary gear. But training is key. Each unit, from infantry to naval, requires preparation. We can't expect our men and women in uniform to go into battle with no experience. Ultimately, it is the readiness of our forces that will determine how well we can uphold our sovereignty and carry out our military strategies. Are we going for a war run? Of course we are. Why would we not? Why would we not? You do not trust in the Rizian people? Okay. You know, how long does it take to prepare a unit from basic training to full combat readiness? The majority of our units reach full readiness within a year, with specialized units requiring additional time for their rigorous preparations. Okay, and how much does cost and training compare? The costs vary by unit. Obviously, the more complex the training and equipment, the more expensive it'll be. Okay. I appreciate all this information, and I'll relay my instructions to you after this meeting ends. Lucitia nodded in satisfaction. If our kingdom took anything away from Palace and Rebellion, it is that we learned the deadly cost of unpreparedness. Our troops must reflect Rizia's resilience, ensuring that such blows never weaken us again. We can achieve this thanks to my house. Camp Domus still runs the most rigorous, high-quality training program on the continent. Right, Captain Gordian? With lightning speed, she reached under the table, pulled out a knife, and hurled it in the direction of the doorway. Titus languidly snatched it out of the air. Okay. You brought a weapon to a council meeting, Duchess? I wouldn't dream of leaving home without it. My kind of woman. She grinned briefly before regaining her poise. Of course, national security doesn't begin and end with the Rizia military. We also have our police and our intelligence divisions to think about. Okay. Does internal security need improvement as well? Yeah, less so, Your Majesty. Our police forces have kept a firm handle on the populace since the uprising. Civil disobedience in Monteclar, for example, is at a historic low, thanks to my zero-tolerance policies as Duchess. Balicris, too, is unlikely to pose major difficulties as long as House Toras is on the throne. And the Central Police, headquartered in Rizia Imperii, have been keeping the capital secure. The members of House Dazon, who ruled Bernius, have mostly fallen in line following the uprising. They're content to use the House of Delegates as a forum for their grievances. He took a deep breath. If there's a problem area, it's Iza. Okay. What, is my cousin failing as his duties as Duke? Well, ruling the Bernat's capital after its transfer to House Toras would not be an easy task for anybody. Complicating the matters are a large number of Wejniak migrants who settled in the city following the Civil War. As I mentioned in our earlier meeting, some turned to the black market to supplement their meager guest worker income, giving rise to organized crime. Okay. What kind of black market activities? The drug trade, mostly. There are cartels connected with the families in Wayland, who in turn answer to powerful distributors in Agard. I've attempted to tackle this myself with a community policing program, but the networks are too strong. Lucia snuffed. In my opinion, the growing influence of the nationalist group Sioux Armenia has only inflamed tensions in the area. Certain members of House Toras may disagree, of course. Okay. Completely agree. For occasional people like my cousin will only stroke the flames of violence. Okay. You know what? Let's go number 2 here. I believe Suamina was founded with good intentions, but they may have made things worse without meaning to. The good Rizians of Izia are doing their best with resources they've been given, Duchess, my son included. The problem I see is that it lies in the lack of cooperation between the city's police force and those of the surrounding region. Yes, I've received the Duke Rico's complaints that the Brennash forces have not been providing him with as much aid as he wishes. As well as his request for extra police from our central forces to be transferred to Iza and placed under his command. But I don't think that would solve anything. Okay. You know, why not, Duchess Azaro? I thought you were tough on crime yourself. I believe in the power of firm hand, Your Majesty, but only when it's exercised with responsibility. Are you calling my son irresponsible, Duchess? I am saying that in the wrong hands, the Central Police could legitimize Zuamino's campaign of oppression rather than neutralize it. Hugo opened his mouth to respond. The Cedar pretended not to notice. Well, Your Majesty, shall we continue with the briefing? You know what about our intelligence capabilities? They're just as important as our military strength. I was getting to that, Your Majesty. The Rizian Intelligence Services operatives in Morella, Durdia, Central Valen, Lesbia, and Rumburg. His Majesty Valero, however, insisted on withdrawing our presence from Zeal and Palace. You know what? That's ridiculous. We need to keep a close watch on both of those regions. Yes, my father told him the same thing. He was afraid of drawing their leader's suspicions. In my experience, we have much more to gain from straightforward diplomacy than from cloak and dagger operations. Mr. Squibel, you may think Valen and Palace are not spying on Rizia. You are fooling yourself. Laurento sniffled indignantly. What useful information were we receiving from either region before this operation's withdrawal? We learned of the prior Duke Najulma's abdication before it was officially announced, for one. Okay. Can the agents in those regions be placed back in position? Now that they have been withdrawn, it'll be difficult and a costly process to get them back into place, but I can inquire into the possibility. Please do so immediately. Consider it done. Domestically, our main intelligence focus has been preventing another uprising. To that end, our information gathering has been concentrated in Brenes, where the last anti-monarchist movement originated. Okay. What about in Cardes Monteclar? The military was involved in the last uprising as well. As I mentioned, the military is in Purge and my province is now under the strictest of controls. Any other questions, Your Majesty? You know, I have a few more questions regarding the military, I think. What is the state of our military production industry? She sighed. Despite our very grand surroundings, we have long neglected the potential of Force Dator. Rumberg currently supplies us with the bulk of our weaponry, including Ka-74 rifles. But if we invested more into research, development, and production in the city, our small arms industry could become a real force to be reckoned with. Okay. I imagine that would also give a boost to the local economy as well. It would, Your Majesty, as long as there are enough people available to fill those new positions that we've created. Of course there will be. We'll draft them into the workforce if need be. We would, unfortunately, still have to rely on Rumberg for weaponry such as missiles, although I've been seeing promising developments in Rizia. I mean, a weapons deal with Rizia could help improve relations between our countries. It would depend on what they demand in return, Your Majesty. I mean, look, of course it would matter what they want. No shit. But I've set aside time to discuss Rizia during our upcoming foreign policy meeting. I look forward to that conversation, Mr. Squibel. Where were we, Your Majesty? You know, what about our naval and air capacity? Our Navy's actually made significant strides in the past 30 years. We are a coastal nation, after all, and our fleet is both well-trained and up-to-date. Our submarines could be used improvement, though. Compared to those currently coming out of Rumberg and Vagsland, they're practically ancient. Our Air Force, meanwhile, is still suffering for the consequences of the Palace campaign. Lorenzo nodded grimly. We did not foresee that Lesbia would become so heavily involved, nor that it would provide the Grand Duchy with a cutting-edge aircraft. Okay. I mean, Lesbia wouldn't even have those planes if it weren't for their close ties to Arcasia. Very true. There's much to criticize about the West, but their technological prowess can't be argued with. And then there's the question of, you know, the army conscriptions. How do we bolster our ranks? I'm glad you asked. As you know, our Central Royal Army is fed both by general conscription and levies from the individual provinces. If you ask me, the provincial army should be pulling more weight. Though I do understand that those in Brenes and Velecreas are not nearly as well trained as Cardes Monteclars. I would also suggest extending the length of conscription period from lowering the conscription age from 24 back to 18. Why did my father raise it to 24 anyways? 24 is the age by which a person's brain's fully formed, Your Majesty. Okay, well, look, Hugo, we want stupid people. We want kids who don't know better because they're more likely to charge into enemy gunfire. So we need to lower that age immediately. I beg your pardon, Uncle Hugo. I mean, no offense, Your Highness, but young people, especially young men, tend to make irrational decisions before that age. And that's what we want. Does you're rebelling against their general? No, I disagree. If you're old enough to vote, you're old enough to fight for your country. My thoughts exactly. I'm going to be the world's most militaristic king. You've never seen anybody more... Nobody likes to bomb more than I do, okay? I'm the bombing king. How's the run going? I think it's going fairly okay so far. We're going to try to get into war at some point. You give me a lot to think about. Let's call it a day for now. The heavy wooden door to the hall creaked open, and Aide rushed over to Lorenzo and whispered something to his ear. I see. I'll get to the telephone right away. He turned to the rest of us, his usual jocular expression overlaid with concern. The Bomber King, that's me, baby. You thought Obama used drones? You ain't seen nothing yet. I must excuse myself briefly, ladies and gentlemen. Please continue without me. Are you going absolutist or reformist? Well, we went reformist in the base campaign, and look where that got us. So we need to go as we're going to go for a more absolutist run this time around. You may excuse Mr. Esquibiel. Thank you, Your Majesty. I'll explain everything shortly. He gave a quick bow, then rushed out of the room. I wonder what that could be about. Anyway, if we leave soon, we can make it back to Port Drezon before it gets too late. An early return to the capital would be my preference as well. But where is Mr. Scabel? He literally just left, my man. The door swung open again, and Lorenzo came back to the hall. He wiped his brow with a silk pocket square. Well, Mr. Scabel, I hope you brought us good news. It's too early to tell if it's good or bad, but it's definitely impactful. I've just received official confirmation that our neighbor has been accepted into the Arcasian Treaty Organization. Lesbia. Lesbia? Precisely. Prime Minister Alvarez has made the official announcement tomorrow. Didn't we all see this coming? It's hardly to be a surprise. Indeed. This development has been on the horizon for some time, but our relations with our neighbors are sure to change because of it. Thank you for upgrading us, Mr. Escabel. I suggest we set a time for the meeting to discuss Lespia's ATO membership, as well as her general foreign policy strategy. That's an excellent suggestion, Your Grace. I'll start preparing the briefing once we're back in the capital. We should all be on the same page regarding this. How bad did the Swordland campaign go? Did you get killed by the military? No, I just got invaded by Rumbrig and died. And got shot to death. That is, after the lovely evening of musical entertainment, but that the king has so generously organized for us. Yes, El Beni was an excellent choice, Your Majesty. Although I do hope the performance showcases earlier work, not as more chaotic contemporary offerings. You know what? Those works are only chaotic to the untrained eater, Hugo. Listen to them for long enough, and a structure appears. I beg your pardon, Your Majesty. I'll be sure to listen more attentively during the concert, as you should, as you should. I confess, it all sounds old-fashioned to me. Have you heard the jazz coming out of Kinal these days? But you have my house's gratitude for the gesture, Your Majesty. I will inform our host that we will be departing shortly. She pushed back her chair and briskly left the halls. I looked over at my daughter. Her brow was furrowed. The Arcasian Treaty Organization? What will that mean for us? It's nothing good. Nothing good, that's for sure. I barely even started my reign, and it's already felt like the ground is shifting beneath my feet. What other challenges will lie in store? Oh, okay, now we got so much shit going on. War production tutorial. Resources. Resources like equipment, tanks, trucks are shown here. Spend these to train units. Hover only any type available below to see its training cost. The number of units, the number under each unit shows how many of these units that are ready to use. The plus icon indicates that that the unit of that type can be trained. Not every unit is available for training. The in-training section shows the units currently in training. They will be available to deploy in the next turn. You can remove units from training by clicking on them in the in-training panel and cancel training. Okay. The units that are currently out on the battlefield are shown in the deployed panel below. A number under each unit shows how many units are deployed at the moment. To increase your resources to train units, sign decrees to build factories, make trade deals or decisions in favor of the military.